My name is Ethan Hunt. My story is about childhood trauma and how I got through it. My father, he was in the Vietnam War. His job over there was to clean up the dead bodies and stuff. He met my mom and they had my first brother. There was abuse that went on in that situation. My dad actually tried to my brother Halloween night. There was a fight and he threatened that he was gonna smash my brother's head in and everything. He would go to work and leave us with his mom. She did all kinds of different things to us. Sometimes she would wait till it was dark and she would shut the electricity off and she would chase us around the house like cackling. It was really creepy. She sounded like a witch. And then she would tie us to our beds with shoelaces so that she could watch her soap operas. So we would just stay tied to the bed for hours. And I remember it was really scary, especially seeing my hands change those colors, like when your blood's not flowing anymore. My dad wouldn't let her feed us. He said he was the only one that was allowed to feed us, so oftentimes we would go without food. I remember one vivid memory, me and my brother actually had to sift through the trash just to find something to eat, and we found like some birthday candy, but that was our meal for the night. And my dad, he was, if anybody's ever seen the show Hoarders, that's what my dad was like. He would say that he was recycling, but every single piece of trash he would throw in the corner, and it slowly became bigger and bigger, and the smell, you can imagine, was horrific. And that was our life. I gave the place a nickname. I called it the Dump of Sorrows. So many bad memories there. One time I walked in on my dad. My brother didn't have any clothes on, and my dad was putting aloe on all of these bruises and stuff all over my brother's behind and stuff. That was really strange to me when I witnessed that. And then another night, my brother was sopping wet and everything, and I asked him what happened, and he said that my dad took him to the swamp and drug him through it. So there's just different weird things like that. And I was smaller, so I could usually get away and hide better than my brother could. My brother has a lot of trauma that hasn't even fully healed yet from all the stuff he went through. We wanted to be with our mom because we barely seen her, but when we did see her, she spoiled us and everything. She always had treats and stuff for us. When it was my birthday, my dad, he would let me play for whatever I got for my birthday for a day, and then he would take it back to the store just so he could get the money for it. And he would do the same thing with Christmas. Everything my mom bought me, we would only see it for a day, and then he would return it to the store, which even as an adult, that still is painful, even though it's just material. But it was almost like a piece of my childhood was kind of ripped away piece by piece. One night, my brother went missing from our house. He was back the next morning, and I asked him, "Where were you?" He said he snuck out the basement window and he went to my mom's house, and she lived about 2 or 3 miles away, and he kept doing that. So I got interested, and I remember one time, me and my brother, we walked all the way from my dad and grandma's house all the way to my mom's house. And my grandma, she chased us. She'd always threatened that she was going to put us in her trunk. Somehow we got away and we made it all the way to my mom's house. My dad even passed on the highway, and he never even seen us, so I thought that was kind of sad that he didn't see his 2 little kids, because I was probably about 5 or 6. There was another time my brother told me that my dad, he took my brother to the basement and put his private in a clamp. Just a lot of different stories like that. On the spiritual side, me and my brother, we could feel the evil in the house. Dad later admitted that there was actually a Ouija board in the house and the family was connected to it somehow, which I thought that was strange. One night, my grandma, she put me to bed early. I remember it was like spring and the sun was slowly going down. And as soon as the sun went down, there was something in my closet moving. And a woman's voice, she said, "Little boy in the crib, what's your name?" And I was so scared, and I cried for my grandma and my brother to come get me out of the room. I was older, but somehow she still got that around me and strapped me in and shut the door with me in the room with that thing. And I remember I put my baby blanket over my head and I prayed and I fell asleep. There were other times when spiritual stuff would happen in the house. I remember one day my dad, he came home with some puppies and he had a cage and everything. He put the dogs outside one day and he just left them to nature. And I remember they all died out around our yard because they weren't getting the food and stuff they needed. And I remember walking through the yard and my dad was just making these graves. And as a kid, it was really traumatizing just to see. He put the dog cage down there, and as a form of punishment, he would make me and my brother take our clothes off, and he would lock us in the cage and turn the lights out and leave us in there for hours on end. And I just remember it was just especially with all the weird, creepy stuff going on in the house. Being down there was even creepier with no lights because like I could hear stuff moving, and I don't know, it could have been rats for all I know. So anyways, that was our life. Eventually, it was the day before Thanksgiving. We were watching TV, became our parent. Like, that was our go-to. In the 90s, we had all those. That was our comfort, was the 90s TV shows that were all on. That was our comfort. My dad was going to take us on a trip to Detroit to go get special food that we could eat. And he was having a fire. He was burning trash or something out in the yard. My brother, he went outside and he picked up the gas can and he poured it on the fire. And it was a miracle that he didn't get burned. The whole thing caught on fire worse than it was, and my brother took off. We couldn't find him. I remember when we got home, it was like midnight, pitch black out. My dad told me to hide, and I remember seeing all these lights, police lights. And from growing up with my dad, we were deathly afraid of the police. Like, the police were the enemy. The door opened and it was a police officer, and he put me in the back of his car where my brother was waiting. And I just remember crying because I really loved my dad and I didn't understand what was happening. They drove us all the way to a strange house. And right away, I don't know how the cops said it or whatever, but they basically said, you'll be staying with these people for a little bit. They're really nice people and they'll take care of you. And that's all I knew. Right away, we were given a bath and put to bed. Eventually, the new foster care, they brought us to a daycare because they both had jobs, both of our foster parents. We were at daycare, and I remember I still wouldn't eat any food that they would give me. I would slide it under the couch, and I'm pretty sure they probably didn't find it for like a year. It was probably pretty gross by the time they found it, but I would always hide all of my food. My brother one day decided that he wanted to, probably from how my dad would always do it, but take off all of his clothes, and he ran through the cornfield naked. And my foster mom was furious, and right away she moved him into another home. And that was devastating to me because at least I had my brother in that strange, unfamiliar place. But when he was taken away like that, like I can literally say I had depression as a kid, like 6 years old with like deep depression. And my only comfort was just praying that God would take care of him and that I would get to see him again. I was probably separated from my brother for a month or two, and I would sometimes get to see him at visitations with DHS. I would beg his foster parents to please let me move in with them, and I would just cry and beg, and they would always just say they don't have enough room. After months of just the same routine, just this empty feeling, I finally convinced them to put us back together. But the way it happened was scarring to me as a kid. With me being left in the original foster home, it was around Christmas time, and I remember Christmas presents were piling up, and my foster parents would say, these are all for you. I was just so excited because every Christmas my dad would take everything I had. Right before Christmas, my foster mom told me that I would be staying with some friends for a little bit and she would come back for me. She never came back for me. That was the last I ever heard of her. Still to this day I can't find her or her husband, so I don't know what happened to them. So here I was in this new home with different foster kids. They were pretty mean to me right away. I would get bullied a little bit. To comfort me, my second foster mom should let me play some video games, but I guess they belonged to another kid, and he found out about it. He would always threaten me that he was going to kill me. There was a surprise, and the surprise was that my brother would get to come live with me at this new home. It was one of the best times in my whole life, just being reunited with my brother once again. Anyways, we're at this new home. I still had my eating problem, which they got mad about, my new foster parents, and they would basically do what the first one did. They would ground me and ridicule me. I remember they had friends over one time, and I tried to eat, but I couldn't. Like, I would start gagging because I kept thinking of what my dad told me. I remember my foster parents' friends that were over, they were all mocking me and stuff. I remember I just hid under a blanket and cried, I think, but I got grounded. And this was our third home. Well, my brother's fourth, my third home. And right away with this third home, like, you could just feel in the air like something's wrong. Right away they took my toys away. But just getting my toys taken away, like, it just kept happening throughout my childhood. It was like each home was trying to take my childhood away in some aspect. One day I didn't close the gate right on their porch. They made me write sentences. It was raining out, and they made me go sit on the porch in the rain and write something like, I will shut the gate the right way. Like this really long sentence. I think they told me to like write 100 sentences in the rain without dinner. And I remember I was just so broken, especially for something so small. I didn't know how to close the gate, and I just felt like that was really overboard. But my emotions were like shattered. And I remember I jumped off the porch and I ran away, and I went and found a tree, and I was just crying and everything. I was coming downstairs for school, and I heard my foster dad tell my niece was probably like 4 or 5, my foster niece, and he said, if you say that Ethan touched you, I will give you a bag of candy. And I heard this, and I'm like, I didn't understand what I was hearing, and I went to school, and it kind of bothered me on the bus and everything. I just kept thinking about what could that be about, and I didn't understand it. And when I got home, her dad was waiting for me. It was wintertime, and I remember he grabbed me by the collar and he dragged me through the snow to the lake, and he told me if I touch his daughter one more time, he's gonna drown me. And then I had to write probably like 500 sentences, something really vulgar about whatever they said I did. And I remember at that point another level of shame came on me that wasn't my own, but I felt like I had to carry it even though I didn't do anything. There's a lot of scarring stuff that happened. I remember they rounded up all of our toys, and I had stuff from my mom and stuff because we had one last visitation with our mom where she said her final goodbyes to us, and it was just very emotional. She bought us some stuff, and like that stuff meant so much to me because that was the only piece of my mom I had. Before they rounded up all of our stuff, they said we could have a garage sale, and they convinced me to sell everything that my mom bought me at the garage sale, and it broke my heart. Yet they promised me that I would make all this money or whatever. So as a kid, I agreed. Having every single thing of mine taken away yet again, it was just weird how life was for me. Like all these people with the same mindset to like take stuff, steal my childhood. I was in the system from the age of 6 till the age of 16. So when I finally reached the age of 16, even though it was against the protocol for the adoptees to let the biologicals see their children, somehow they were able to reconnect me and my brother to my mom, and we started kind of doing like a pen pal thing. And that connection started, and they talked to our biological mom and arranged for us to go there for a Christmas break. I remember I was so excited and nervous at the same time. It was almost like a Hallmark movie where like the snow's like just floating down and like everything's perfect. I remember they drove us, and I just remember seeing all the scenes from a child, like everything was coming back to me, the good memories of my mom's house. And when I finally seen her house, it was like, it felt healing to me. Like, it was just amazing. I was my own worst enemy, but I would always just wonder why my mom didn't want me. And I just feel that rejection. And I remember as a kid, as early, just right away in foster care, I had that question in my mind, why didn't my mom want me? So finally, when we came to her house, this is one of my favorite memories in my whole life as well. I remember we walked in and just smelling my mom's house and just incense. My mom was a painter. She had paintings. It was just really homey and exactly the same that I remembered. It was just amazing spending Christmas with my biological family, because being adopted, I felt like I wasn't real. They allowed me to go for summer. So I went down. Being a teenager, my mind's thinking of girls and stuff. And I don't know why I asked my mom if she knew any single girls, but I did. And she's like, yeah, I know a girl. And we got connected and started hanging out. I fell in love with this girl, but something happened back home with my biological brother where my adopted parents said they have to cancel my summer vacation and they have to come get me right now. And I remember I was so devastated and so angry that they promised me this summer, yet they're stealing it away from me. When I got home, my biological brother was missing, and the whole family was searching for him. Nobody could find him. In my mind, I knew my brother finally got away. He was about to turn 18. But as I thought of this girl, like my girlfriend called my home, and my adopted dad picked up the phone and he screamed at her, and he told her never to call our house again, like just horrible, and hung up on her. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it just messed with me so bad as a teenager that I'm like, I'm leaving this place. I don't care what happens anymore. They seen that I was in such a wreck that they said they were sending me to Detroit for the rest of the summer with one of their friends. And I knew in my mind, like, I'm getting away, because they were sending me to Detroit. And I'm like, I know I can get away down there. Somehow I got in touch with my brother. I don't even know how I did it, but my brother, he had jumped on a plane and flew all the way to Boston. And somehow he reconnected with me, and we came to the arrangement that he would Western Union me some money so that I could get away. I lived in Boston for probably just the rest of the summer, a month and something, but I had a longing to be back with my mom. We got back with my mom and we started living there, and I reconnected with this girl, and I was fully in love with her. We started planning out when we were going to get married, the names of our kids, all this stuff, and for some reason she kept wanting to be alone. Like, she's like, oh, I'm going to do this, but I want to be alone. Turns out she was hanging out with other guys, and I think she was cheating on me. She broke up with me, and it completely ruined me. I asked one of her friends out, and I don't know what started the whole domino effect. I think I was kissing her friend in the school hallway, and I think she's seen it or something. I'm still confused why everything happened the way it did, but I was at the doctor's with my mom for the day. When I got back to school, everybody was afraid of me for some reason, and I thought they were just joking around. And then my next class, the whole school went on lockdown, and I asked everybody what was going on, and they said, oh, it's probably just a drill where they check the lockers for and everything. And I remember my teacher ran scared out of the room, and police, they rushed into the room with their guns drawn, and they said, is Ethan here? And I said, yeah, right here. And they shouted, get on the ground, get on the ground. And it was one of the scariest times of my life. They put me in handcuffs. They emptied out my bag, and all that fell out was like a Bible and some stuff. They brought me to jail. But as I was sitting in the cop car, I just said to myself, I will never get close to anybody ever again. I just made this weird agreement. I went to a dance with another girl that I used to sit at the lunchroom table with, and she fell in love with me, and she started telling all of her friends that one day she's going to marry me. I went back out to Boston after the gun incident. I tried to start life out there, but I just felt like a calling to get back to my hometown again. I asked this girl out, and she said yes. Actually, we were together 15 years, and we've been married for 13. We have 2 kids together. My son, who's 14, he'll be turning 15 soon, and my daughter, she'll be turning 9 soon. And that's just an amazing part of my story, is that I feel like the Lord allowed me to break the family cycle, the abuse. Now my family, I have a healthy family. I'm a dad to wonderful kids, and I actually have a wife who loves me. That's just an amazing thing that I get a normal life. And I've found so much healing through them. It's almost like the stuff from my childhood is being relived the right way through me, through my kids. My kids get to live the life I never got to live. So it's just been amazing. Before we got this far in our marriage, in the beginning, I was still very insecure. I got into drugs, and I got into trying to cheat on my girlfriend a lot. And these things, I remember so many situations, I'd be in a situation with a girl or something, nothing would ever happen. And it just felt divine, something was protecting me. But anyways, I was experimenting with and all these things to numb the pain from my childhood. I carried so much pain with me. I remember I was in a bar. I heard this voice. It was inside, and it said, Ethan, why are you wasting your life? It was like something snapped, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am wasting my life. And I told my friends I was done with this lifestyle. I couldn't do it anymore. And I think that they thought I was joking. But the next day, I remember praying, and I repented of my sins, and I accepted Jesus as my Savior and God as my true Father. And I remember a weight just came up off my shoulders, and I felt peace for the first time in my whole life. After all this, a paper fluttered off my nightstand, and I went and I picked it up, and it said that there was going to be a church meeting within a half an hour. And I really felt like that had to be a sign. How did that happen? And I told my fiance at the time, who I'm with now, that I had to go to this meeting. And I went to this meeting, and there was a guy preaching from Africa, and it was every single thing he was saying was piercing my heart, and it was really good. And the next day, I told my fiance that she had to come too and experience what I'm experiencing. We went, and she got bored, and she went back to the car. But the guy, he did an altar call, and everybody started lining up at the stage, and I was like, what is going on? What are these people doing? This is weird. But I felt like an invisible force pulling me up. And when the guy got to me, Jesus' name just started going through my mind, and he put his hand on my head, and he shouted power, and I fell. It was I fainted. It was really weird, but there was a golden light, and the best feeling of love I've ever felt. If I could describe it, it felt like liquid love. It felt like I was being hugged by like my real father. Like usually I'm shy, I wouldn't do that in front of people. And I remember I got up, I went and asked the pastor what just happened to me, and he kind of explained it. And I remember the car ride home, I just felt like electricity was like going through my body. My fiance and son, they were tired, so they went to sleep. I've just realized forgiveness. I've forgiven my father. I remember the morning I told him I forgave him, and I really meant it. And he cried, and it was just a healing moment. And it was healing for me that I don't have to carry that with me, that bitterness and that resentment and that anger. I don't got to carry that. And they say that forgiveness is for ourselves. It's not even for the other person. Lots of the people that hurt you, they're living their lives as normal. They're probably not even thinking about what they did to you. As we go through trauma, we carry these things and we think about them almost daily. And forgiveness is a way to release that. We can be a doormat and live the victim mentality, or we can rise up and say, no, enough is enough, and I'm going to be the change in this world. I hope that my story encourages you that, yeah, there's a lot of darkness in the world, but there's also a lot of light, and there is hope for the future. Yeah, and that's my story.